go ahead and start there. And we'll give it a couple more minutes in hopes that we get a couple more students that decide they want to join us today. Rachel, did you have any questions for me before we get started?
No, I think I'll probably be on the shorter end because I'd love to take more questions from folks. But yeah, I don't have slides. Since it was relatively short, I thought I would just draft something up to talk through.
Sounds great. What's really happening? It's got this. This technology is super fun. Okay. We got it. Yay. All right. Super. Well, I'm excited to meet you, Rachel, and I do appreciate you being here. We this webinar series has been fun this summer. We're really trying to roll out a series of speakers from all over the industry. And so we started with a bunch of folks who were kind of in the small wind realm, talking about distributed generation. We had, who did we have last week? We had Catherine, and she's actually with like a recruiting company, but they help recruit for renewable energy careers. And I wasn't there. So Alina, I hope that was a useful discussion if you were there. But that she's a fantastic person. She has a great podcast that she runs where you get to meet people from around the industry. And then next week we'll be meeting some folks coming up in the wind, utility scale wind and solar. So having you in the mix here, talking a little bit about transportation and things like that, I think will be really interesting. So that just kind of gives you a little context into what those guys have been learning this year. And their questions have been great at the end. And if we don't get a lot of students, because it does ebb and flow week to week, I always have lots of questions. So, so we'll ask lots of things.
Awesome.
And Stephen, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, while we're waiting to see if anyone else is going to join us, I'll go ahead and just kick us off with our normal announcements. First of all, just a reminder that we do have our applications still open for the RE Plus conference in September. And so, Stephen, I know you haven't been on in the past, but if you have any students around this summer that would like to attend the RE Plus conference, and I apologize, my dog is going crazy. So I don't know what's going on out there, but we provide a hotel accommodations and free registration. And then during the conference, we help with, some networking. There's a career fair. We set them up meetings with the industry, one-on-one, kind of like what we do here on this webinar series, but in person. And so it's a really fun event. And if, this is a kind of a crazy conference to start your conference career with, because it's like 50,000 people in Las Vegas. It's crazy. So it's super fun, but apply using that QR code. And if the QR code doesn't work, you just go to our website under conference experiences, and it's the link is right there. The other thing is, I just want you to know, I am still working with the folks at Rise on the Leadership Forum, which is a fantastic event that they host. It's in October and it's in Atlanta. And I am working to try to get some education discounted student tickets because registrations is pretty expensive for folks to attend. So if, and I'm looking to see if maybe there are some volunteer opportunities. So if you have interest in attending the Rise Leadership Forum, maybe just send me an email or something, and I'll keep you posted if I hear anything on how we can make this more affordable for students to attend. Just a reminder, we are recording this presentation. We have Rachel with us today, but all of the previous webinars from this summer and also back into the academic year are on our YouTube channel. Highly recommend you checking those out. We also have other things in there that might be of interest to you, past webinars and other recordings. And with that, I would love to just open it up for us to meet Alina and Stephen. So Rachel, you can get to know your audience, and then I can turn it over to you and we'll have a nice, fun discussion.
Great.
So Alina, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Rachel. I'm Alina. I'm a current writing sophomore student at the Johns Hopkins University. I major in computer science, but also previously worked with the Hopkins Student Wind Energy team. But really nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you.
And Stephen?
Sorry, I had to get it off on mute there. So hi, Steve Johnson. I'm an adjunct professor at UMass Lowell, and I teach the wind energy courses to the grad students there. And I also mentor on the collegiate wind competition team. That's sort of my primary thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much both for being here. And with that, Rachel, I'm excited to learn more about you and hear more about what you have been up to these days.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come and share my experience here. I feel like you have hand selected the audience here because I was previously an adjunct faculty member at Johns Hopkins. So I was teaching a course there. Alina, to maybe some of your colleagues, and Steve, I actually went to UMass Amherst. So in the UMass family. So perfect to have this this small little conversation. And feel free to ask questions or pipe in whenever. But I do have some prepared remarks. I'm going to keep them pretty short because I think, especially with a small group like this, it's better to have you guys help me direct the conversation so you can get a lot of good value out of it as well. So I'm Rachael Nealer. I was the first federal employee in the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation, and was the exiting executive director. My presentation here, my discussion is probably going to be a little bit different than what you've heard from your past webinars, just because I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the end use perspective, right? You're talking about the generation of wind and solar, and so we're going to shift gears a little bit to how we can tie the energy and the electric grid to transportation. So that is exactly what the Joint Office was meant to be. We know that the future is electric, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the maybe left turns, right turns that we've heard recently around electrification. But what I still continue to hear from the industry is that the long-term goalposts haven't moved. We are still headed towards electrification. They are good machines. They are efficient. They are just a better experience, both on the light duty side and the medium and heavy duty side. So I still have a lot of confidence that we'll get there. I think it's going to be a matter of how long it's going to take to get to that end goal. So you might be asking, what is the Joint Office? If you don't spend much time in transportation, the Joint Office was kind of an experiment in the federal government. It was pulling together both the Department of Energy and the Department of Transportation in a very unique way to support the building of a national EV charging network. So we were actually an office that was stood up in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and we supported $17.5 billion worth of investment in electrification. The majority of our work was around establishing two major programs called the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, the NEVI program. That's the one that gets the most news about it. That's really building out a backbone of EV chargers, fast EV chargers, across the US through the state departments of transportation. But then we also had a program that we supported called the Charge and Fueling Infrastructure Program. The NEVI program was about $5 billion, and the CFI program was $2.5 billion. And the CFI program was really about filling in some of the gaps that might be left by building out kind of the backbone. So, you know, making sure that we were building EV charging in cities, in rural areas, just making sure that it's very well distributed so that anybody had the ability to ride and drive electric. About $10 billion, if you're doing the math while we're talking, about $10 billion left was split about equally between the school bus electrification program run by the Environmental Protection Agency and the low no emissions program that supports transit electrification through the Federal Transit Administration. So we were really there to catalyze this national network by also bringing in private partners and growing this national EV charging network that is convenient, reliable, and equitable. We worked very closely with our partners at the Federal Highway Administration, which were ultimately the ones who executed on both the NEVI and the CFI program as it was written into law. So that was the whole gist of the joint office. We were there to work sort of a recognition that in order to make this transition to new technology like EVs on the light duty and medium and heavy duty side, we really needed to not just throw money at it, not just throw the billions of dollars at it, but actually support it with technical assistance as well. So we spent a lot of time in the office building up the technical assistance team and the capacity that was needed in states to run state-led programs to deploy the EV charging network, while also coordinating across those states and across anyone who submitted applications and were awarded proposals in the CFI program, which could be anywhere from a state all the way down to a city or a local regional government. So we were there to kind of pull everything together, not only on those federal programs, but also how were we informing the private industry so that we're not duplicating EV charging in certain areas, or at least if we are duplicating, we're doing so with intention, and making sure that we're working very closely with our private partners. And there were a lot of private partners that made very significant commitments, not only on making EVs, but also in building out the EV charging network. What we're experiencing now is a bit of a pendulum swing. So I think you may have seen in the news some of the Trump administration actions for the NEVI program, then the court cases where the states have sued the Trump administration for withholding some of those funds. So we're kind of in the thick of it. We're in this space where there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of dust being, kicked up. And I heard a phrase just the other day that I really liked, that we might not have time to wait for the dust to settle. We're going to have to clear the way. We're going to have to figure out how to move forward with electrification in particular, and many other clean energy technologies, even if we do have a bit of uncertainty in the near term. But I do think that there's still a lot of optimism and certainty about the long run. We know we want to get to more clean energy, more clean transportation. But we are in the thick of that pendulum swing. I think the really great thing about programs like this, talking to people who are still in school, still learning a lot, that you're able to witness this moment with a different perspective, where I would really encourage students to meet this moment with curiosity. There, I think, is a real opportunity to reset and to rebuild, and to take a critical look at the things that are that do benefit us and that do suit us, and continue those, while also rethinking what it might look like to continue momentum in the clean energy and clean transportation sectors. So, you know, this is a really interesting learning moment. Especially when I was still in the Joint Office, I used to talk a lot about how it's a very interesting human experiment to be living right now, because there's a lot of things that are being called into question that I don't think anyone would have projected. And so I have been really resonating on this one quote from Thomas Sowell that says, "There are no solutions, only trade-offs." And I think just kind of thinking about the future, about how we can build more enduring systems, is a really important way to think about our path forward. And that's not only for clean energy, it's also for clean transportation, it's also for the government. You know, how are we building enduring systems? And I think we've gotten to a point where we have a number of challenges, climate change being one of those, that was kind of created in silos. And so if we continue to work in those silos, we're not going to be able to solve the problems. So, you know, now we're kind of looking for these continued actionable and sustainable solutions forward. To me, the solution is a lot in what we did in the Joint Office, which was partnerships and diversification. So I went to Columbia University event just the other day and heard from some representatives from the World Bank that at the global level, there seems to be some new interest in also adding things like nuclear and hydropower to generate more power, right? We have a lot of needs for electricity, not only our current needs, but we're also looking down the pike at a lot of additional demands being put on the electric grid, whether that's EVs for light duty, EVs for medium and heavy duty, which is going to be more significant, but also manufacturing, also artificial intelligence and data centers. So I think if we can meet this moment with partnerships and diversification, not only of the generation sources, I think renewables has a huge piece to play in that at this point. It is one of the fastest deployed technologies to generate power right now. There's a lot of really great minds that are thinking about how we continue to make progress in renewable energy. And I think that both clean energy and clean transportation are in this unique space where we have, whether we have all the investments that we thought we would get just a number of years ago, I do think we have spent a lot of time planning and a lot of time working together and partnering with each other to move things forward. And so I'm very hopeful that even if, you know, some of the federal investments don't go through or some of the private investments don't go through, that we still have some momentum to continue to work together on solving some of these big issues that were created in silos, but maybe those silos don't serve us as well anymore for especially big challenges like climate change and building out the electric grid, where you have the generation now connecting it to all these end uses like transportation, as an example. I also think there's another note here about reliability. I think that's going to be really important. I think we're getting to the point where costs are coming down. Many of both the technology on the EV side and the charging side, the market is starting to pencil out a little bit more. I think that's also happening on the renewable side. So I think we have some backing to keep moving, even without subsidies or investments from the government. But I think we also need to be focusing on reliability, the reliability of the grid, the reliability of charging. You know, we live in a society where people expect the lights to turn on when they hit the switch. And we need to continue to focus on those kind of customer experiences as we are building out the capacity for both clean energy and clean transportation. So I'll stop there. That's kind of the gist of my prepared remarks, but I'm happy to take questions and talk more however you guys want to direct the conversation.
Amazing, Rachel. Thank you so much for that. I know I have a slew of questions that I've written down, but I will open it up graciously to Alina and Steve to start the conversation if they want to.
I can start, I guess. But thank you, Rachel. That was really, really amazing. And I feel like I deeply resonate with a couple of points we talked about because my wind energy team would just compete at a collegiate wind competition. And after that, we kind of like witness the signing of the bill and everything. So it is a big shift for us as well. And no, even though I heard that there's still gonna be a collegiate wind competition next year, but we are also looking into a couple of different directions, including EV charging actually, because we learned that like Maryland has a couple of really supportive incentives on the B2B technology. So I was just wondering if you have any general thought on this kind of transformation or just suggestion, or even since you've been working really for a long time at the federal level, like what kind of, I guess, technology that would you consider as like much needed for this field at this point, or kind of like innovation just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're doing exactly what I am talking about conceptually. You're thinking creatively about how to continue progress, knowing that maybe the short term is going to be a bit disrupted. You are clearing the way through the dust. I just can't say how much I love that visual, that saying. And I think you and the younger folks that are witnessing this are able to take a little bit more of the long term. So I just really appreciate you working with others to try to find a path forward. I do think that there are a lot of translatable skills and technologies across renewables and transportation. Battery storage is huge as well. And that could also be some of the connective tissue between EV charging and renewables because, some ways that EV charging stations are looking at reducing demand charges or offering more reliable EV charging is to actually have battery storage at the sites as well. And I know that wind and solar also are working on that as well, so that when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, you still have that backup. So I think that might be a nice connective tissue too for you to investigate is if you're translating some of the wind technology over to EV charging, batteries and battery storage might be an interesting place to look at too.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to chime in with a question I think tags onto this nicely. And thank you for the perspective, Rachel, of where this technology is at and some of the challenges that it's seeing. One of the things that I would love to hear your thoughts on is what are the workforce needs within this kind of transportation electrification realm? But as a repowering schools, we want to help with that. But I honestly am so ingrained in wind and solar that I don't really know. I work with our Virginia Clean Cities program pretty heavily, but still trying to learn the ropes of, what are the skill sets and, what's translatable.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a handful of things that I can think of off the top of my head. Electricians, obviously, to install EV chargers is huge. The Joint Office actually ran a funding opportunity to support workforce development in installing EV charging. So a number of those projects were awarded. And the goal was also to ensure that we were increasing the pipeline for minorities and women in particular, because becoming an electrician is a really big task, but it is very helpful to installing EV chargers. But then on the other side of that, you have the EV charging software. So lots of software engineering skills, coding, that is all very, very important. You also have the communications, so the communications with the vehicle and the charger, but also both the vehicle and the charger to the cloud. And then you also start talking to the utilities. So there's a lot of important skills in software development and communications. There's the hardware development and the manufacturing side. So actually building the EV chargers. We might see a little bit of a shakeup there because there were in the past year or two a number of facilities, EV manufacturing facilities that were announced for US manufacturing, that some of those deals, and especially if they're getting federal support, are being reviewed, and we'll have to see how that shakes out, whether they're able to stay here or if some of those facilities are going to be outsourced. You know, the automakers spend a lot of time on not only improving electric vehicles, but there are a lot of components between electric vehicles and conventional vehicles that are very similar. I mean, at this point, we're basically driving around big computers, whether it's a gas fueled computer or whether it's a electric fueled computer. So the automakers also have a lot of opportunities for growth. There have been some student competitions, so bringing this back also to student competitions like EcoCar and Super Truck, which are both programs run by the Vehicle Technologies Office. EcoCar is a college university level competition, and then Super Truck is for automakers and manufacturers who are prototyping electric trucks, medium and heavy duty trucks. So those are also things to kind of look at for workforce development. We did have a report that we were working on in the Joint Office and the Vehicle Technologies Office on workforce development. I know Congress is particularly interested in building out workforce here domestically. And so hopefully that report will come out in the coming months.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I appreciate that perspective.
Could I add one more? I just remembered the battery workforce challenge as well as another Vehicle Technologies Office specifically focused on the battery side of the workforce pipeline.
I have more questions, but I'm going to let Steve or Nina ask some.
Sure. I'll just jump in, and because I've always been on the wind side, and I haven't really had my nose into the electrical vehicle charging up to this point. I'm just kind of curious, where do you think the technology is at this point from a vehicle charging standpoint? You know, in that learning curve, one goes up. It's going to be a lot of room for improvement, or do you think the technology is somewhat mature, more mature? What's your thinking on the technology side of this?
So what we're deploying right now is pretty mature. You know, there's always room for improvement, especially for increasing the power levels. You know, it would be great if we could charge up vehicles more similar to gasoline vehicles, just if only because that's what drivers expect. However, when you do get an electric vehicle, it's very convenient to charge at home if you have that available. So then, I mean, I have not been to a gas station in a long time, and I can't say that I miss it. If not for just road trips to grab some snacks, right? Or charge up with the fast chargers. So I do think that that the current market has a very mature technology that is good for public fast charging. I do think there's a lot of growth in just installing level 2 charging in just convenient areas, cities, shopping areas, grocery stores, just places where you can top off if you're going to spend 30 minutes there or so. So that's kind of a growth area. That technology, though, is also very mature. Level 2 is very reliable. I think that we have in the market right now existing chargers that are not as reliable as we want them to be. And by that, I mean chargers that are functioning right now. However, they are getting replaced relatively quickly with more reliable technology. So we're seeing huge increases in the reliability. We have a lot of technology growth in what's called plug-in charge, which is basically like makes charging easier than paying for parking. Like you just drive up to a charger, you plug your car in, and then you walk away, because there's the handshake that can be done between the car and the charger just through communications, and that's how you're charged. You don't have to do a payment system. You don't have to do any of that. Obviously, you set it up in advance, but then when you get to the moment, you're able to just very easily plug in. So that's called plug-in charge, and something that I think will really improve customer satisfaction of EV charging. But then, like I said, increasing power levels when you do fast charging for light duty would be a place to continue to grow. Medium and heavy duty, or the MCS charging, which is megawatt or above charging. There are some growth opportunities there. That also is just a challenge in terms of power delivery, utilities being able to plan where those medium and heavy duty vehicles are going to be charging, because they're going to draw a lot more power than disaggregated light duty charging. But then on top of that, there is this kind of technology frontier of bidirectional charging. So that is the idea that we would be able to, because we're driving around all these batteries, that we would be able to, when they're plugged in, also utilize them as a resource, not just a end user of electricity. There's a lot of research and development in that, some pilot programs, but there's definitely a lot of growth in that area. But as far as the fundamentals of the technology, I think we have what we need to satisfy kind of the current customer demand, but there's always room to improve technology.
So what we were just talking about, this bi-directional, is that like what we've heard of, the idea that like you may have solar on your house, and then if you have an EV, like you can store your solar in your EV as and then use it in your house later if you've charged it?
Yeah, there's a lot of different applications of vehicle, V to X, vehicle to any kind of infrastructure. And yes, that would be one case in which you would be able to use, this is available right now. Ford offers for their F-150 Lightning the option to do bidirectional, to charge your house. You're able to do that right now. I think it becomes even more complex. So it's one thing to kind of charge your own battery and then use it. It becomes even more complex when then you have the utility coming in and communicating directly with your vehicle, or somehow communicating in a way that allows the energy levels of the battery to go up and down based on, the resources that are needed elsewhere.
Mm.
So kind of a variety of different types of vehicle to grid, vehicle to infrastructure, vehicle to home.
And sorry, Steve, you were speaking and I totally interrupted you.
No, that's quite all right. Quite all right. Very interesting. And I just was curious, just following up a little bit on the EV chargers themselves, and you were talking about the workforce and electricians. Does it require a special grade of electrician to be doing EV installations? Or maybe there's a cut point where you go above a megawatt and you're dealing with, medium voltage levels, above 1,000 or whatever, 1,000 volts. Or is there some transition, or or could just any ordinary electrician install an EV?
So there are training programs. For example, EVITP is a training program specifically for EV installation. I think there are some jobs that require, very experienced electricians, and then other jobs that, especially with operations and maintenance, that might be able to be done by, a less experienced electrician, and or just maybe, if a payment system is broken on an EV charger, then someone else can come in and can make the swap out for that. Doesn't necessarily have to require an electrician for any job that you need to do on an EV charger. But those are some of the nuances that we've also been trying to think about as we build out the workforce as well. It's a relatively new technology, not a lot of experience with O&M in the field. And so how do we really build up an entire ecosystem of workforce around EV charging beyond the installation?
Yeah. And I would certainly think that O&M is a, whole specialty area in and of itself, when the guy comes to repair my dishwasher, everything's pretty low voltage and not too dangerous. But when you start talking about repairing something that is, operating 3 or 4 times, normal voltage, and if he has to go in and replace a diode or a IGBT or something like that, that could be, quite a different game from a O&M standpoint.
Yep.
I have another question for you, and you had mentioned kind of like the anyway, so I guess my question is about how could we be better utilizing universities and schools to potentially help drive EVs and charging? Like we've talked about rural America, it's very challenging to get enough chargers to make people feel like they can go anywhere and have a charge. And so EVs aren't taking off so much in rural areas. Is there a role that a school or university, specifically in rural areas, might be able to play to kind of help boost adoption?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great things about schools, especially if there's a lot of local students, they might understand some of the community needs in a different way than just understand the community needs, right? And I think that and can be trusted communicators to the community. I think those two things are oftentimes very, very powerful because while EV charging is beneficial for a lot of reasons, there are also reasons to maybe not have EV charging in certain locations. And so we spend a lot of time trying to build up some of that community engagement that was required in our EV planning on an annual basis for the NEVI program. It was required in the CFI applications. And so I do think that the more local you can get, whether that's a university or even elementary school, right, that you can understand the community needs in a way that then you can communicate what the benefits are and what the costs are for something like, for any new technology, whether that's EV charging, whether that's wind, solar. I think that's a really important piece because we don't want to be technology forcing, right? We want to get to our end goals of clean transportation and clean energy, but not at the cost of alienating parts of our community.
So, for instance, I mean, repairing schools came out of the Wind for Schools program, which was a Department of Energy program where we were putting small wind turbines at schools to kind of start the conversation as well as develop a workforce. But could you see benefit in like having schools, I don't know, like these school districts having EVs as part of their, public school fleet, as a demonstration to the community that these things work, or having EV chargers at the schools near the football stadium so people can charge their cars when they go to football games. Like, are those the kinds of things that we're thinking, or like really just like community education events?
I think all of the above. So communication events are great, but demonstrations are also very important. I think a way that has already been very effective is school bus electrification. School bus electrification is very useful for demonstrating the technology to a lot of the students, teachers, schools. That is a very important piece of it, because I think there's a lot of concern that EVs might not be right for a certain use case. And so if you're able to prove out that use case and say, actually, no, these electric school buses do work for this district, maybe they'll work for your district too. Or that was actually a big part of our federal strategy as well, was kind of the government leading by example, changing the USPS trucks to electric, changing the overall government fleet over to electric. And there were specific goals set for each one of those, in order to demonstrate that electrification was something that is doable for many use cases.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions? Because I can keep going.
I do have to, I think that I have another appointment after this. And so I do have to run. I hate to cut the conversations short. But if there's a last question or two, I'm happy to take it quickly, or if there's follow-up, I'm also happy to give you guys my email address.
I mean, I would definitely love to chat with you more. Just from a personal standpoint, I'm curious. What do you drive, and what's your favorite EV on the market?
I drive a BMW i3. It's actually a relatively, it was one of the first EVs. So it's no longer made actually, but I love it very much. It's a great car to drive around a city. It doesn't have tons of range, but it is small and easy for city driving, and I do have access to home charging. But we also have a second car, an F-150 Lightning, that we use for camping, and my husband does some house contracting work, so he's able to use it for his work as well. And we also really love that for very different reasons. It's very, very large, but it is a very comfortable car for our family, truck for our family, and has led to some really great camping trips.
That's awesome. I'm looking at an ID4, a Volkswagen ID4.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it.
I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Happy to let you go. I have your contact information. I will copy you when I send the follow-up to the network, so everybody will have your contact information in case they have further questions. But this was really, really helpful to me. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for the discussion.
You bet. And just for you guys on the call, I just wanted to remind you that we do have another call next week. And next week we're meeting Alex Martin, who is an assistant program manager with Mortensen Construction in the wind energy side. And just as a
Mhm.
plug, he's a JMU grad. I taught him when he was in high school, and now he's come all the way
Uh-huh.
through JMU and has been working at Mortenson since he graduated. And he's done everything from climb towers and fix turbines, and now he's on the project management side. So I think it'll be fantastic to meet him. I hope you'll join us next week and share this with whomever you would like and invite them to come join us. And so with that, I'll let you all go. And unless anybody has any other questions, I'll stick around. But thank you, Rachel. And we'll send a follow-up email around later.
Awesome. Thank you
Good.
so much.
Yeah,
Thanks
you
very
got it.
much.
Have a good
Thank you.
afternoon, folks. Bye.